Hey everyone. Um, Doing a really, really quick what's in my bag. It's my mostly soundtrack edition. Um, Recently, I don't know if I decided or I just started moving in that direction. I want to get more soundtracks. I have a weird thing for soundtracks. Uh, I think part of the appeal now these days collecting soundtracks is very rarely are they available through streaming services. I've noticed. So people always talk about streaming and blah, streaming, blah, blah, blah. The problem is there is a lot. I mean, it seems like, oh, we have 4 million albums. But, if that's out of 7 million possible or whatever, there's stuff you're missing. And I've noticed, somewhat more esoteric soundtracks often are not. And Uh, First one actually has not arrived yet, but I'm not going to do one just for it. It is, yeah, in transit in the mail. It's the soundtrack to Phantom of the Paradise, one of my favorite movies. It'll be the second Paul Williams soundtrack since I have Bugsy Malone. I'll just hold up like this, and then maybe I'll digitally insert it in my hands. But I'm really excited. I have owned it before in the past. It's a neat album. There's some great songs on there. Next one, Monty Python's Meaning of Life. Um, Film is somewhat controversial as a uh, Monty Python entry. The Pythons themselves are notoriously prickly about the film. There's actually a Netflix thing in the recent sort of Monty Python infusion on Netflix where they talk about it, and several of them are very disappointed with how the film turned out. Some of them a little more inclined to defend it, but um, I have a soft spot for it. It's the one that came out when I was a kid. Um, uh, I think it was was it 13 when that came out, something like that, and it was very much geared towards my humor at that age. So it's I'm not saying it's the best Monty Python movie. Don't jump up my butt, but it's the one that has a special place in my heart because it came out. It was on video. I think it may have even been on video before the other two, since it was a new release. And older movies they weren't quite as eager to bring out on video yet. Um, so I remember renting that thing 40 fucking times and some of the humor, all right, some of it maybe a little less enamored with at my current age, but I loved that movie when I was 13. And this is, of the movies, this is definitely the one with the best songs, as well as the most songs. I mean, on this, you've got the introductory song, I think they list it on here somewhere. The actual meaning of like the Galaxy song, which is actually a really great Eric Idle song. The Accountancy Shanty, and the Not Noel Coward song, which is cute. Christmas in Heaven, which I'm very fond of, and if I ever have need for like a holiday mixtape, I will include that. And then, of course, Every Sperm is Sacred, which when I was 13, again, that was the height of sophisticated humor. The other one I did post this online when it arrived. It's the United States of America. This is a seminal album. Very happy to have found it in a affordable pressing. It's a UK pressing. The previous owner had lived in the UK for 30, 40 years, according to what they shared. I wasn't really asking, but they felt like giving me their life story when I bought their album. And since they sold it to me for only $12, I'm like, okay, I can listen to your life story. Um, and so they had a whole bunch of UK releases of not automatically British albums. So I'm very giddy. This is a milestone album. It's very subversive politically and culturally. It's also aesthetically subversive. Uses a lot of So proto synthesizers, and there are no guitars on the album, which is certainly something you don't hear a lot of in popular music. The next one, bear with me on this. Some of you will get it, some of you won't. It's the Popeye soundtrack to the much maligned, in my opinion, Robert Altman film adaptation of the Popeye character story. Um, I think people are a little rough on this movie, personally. Also, I think the soundtrack is kind of cool. It's by Harry Nilsson. There is another version of this, which is like his demos, that I'm hoping to find at some point. But I think people. This is a movie that I feel like if it was made today, people would get much more, because we have so many more adaptations of video games and comic strips and comic books and so on and so forth. Most of which are garbage. Let's be honest. And I think if this had existed in today's world, people would this would actually be held up as one of the better adaptations. But because it came out in 1980, um, there's not really a time when you thought of movies like a movie version of Popeye, um, a musical with Shelley Winters and Robin Williams singing. Um, but you know what? Fuck it. I like it. I liked it as a kid. I quietly liked it for a long stretch of my adulthood, and now I comfortably like it again. The next one, this is, I think, one of the few non soundtracks, because, like I said, hoping to kind of grow the soundtrack section. Um, it is the landmark, seminal, you know, whatever the hell you want to call it. Chamber Brothers album, Time Has Come Today. Time. Um, I listened to the first. This arrived today. I listened to the first side of it so far. It's actually on my turntable as we speak. Um, Obviously, what I knew of this album was the 10-ish minute version of Time Has Come Today, which is why I wanted to buy this. You always see compilations from them, and it'll be like a 3-minute version. There's like a radio edit. I don't want that. I want the full fucking trip of Time Has Come Today. Um, and As a cool, I don't know much about them. I'm gonna look them up later. This is a cool album. The one side I listened to. It's definitely R&B, but with kind of a rockin' edge. Next one, the Gatefold. So original oldie pressing on Apple Records of the El Topo soundtrack. This is just autobiographically, this has haunted me now for decades because I remember as a teenager, I knew the movie El Topo, but I hadn't seen it yet. I wouldn't see it until my mid 20s when I bought a VHS bootleg of the Japanese Laserdisc. If Garrett Anderson is watching this, he will remember because I believe he may have actually been there that evening, which was the first viewing of El Topo. I knew it already from the Jonathan Rosenbaum book, Midnight Movies. So I had a fair good sense of it, but because this was not commercially available until, what 10 or so years ago, there's really no way to see this other than in like weird underground bootlegs, which I couldn't get as a kid. So I knew the movie, and I saw this at Record Swap in Homewood, Illinois, as they call it. I always called it Illinois, but apparently the locals like to put S's on things, like I'm going to the Jewels. But anywho, I saw this great gatefold. They had it in their used soundtrack bin for $3.99. Because I hadn't seen the movie, I didn't buy it. And low these many years, it's one of those things that haunts me. I found it. The sticker price on this is 35, but it was marked down. I think I paid 15 for it, which simply not to have this hanging over my head anymore in shame. It's not a very listenable soundtrack. I'd much rather have Holy Mountain, which I'm hoping to get soon, on vinyl. There's some cool like Don Cherry jazz and some freak out rock. This is like demented mariachi music, but I had to own it. Slightly different album, different direction. We have Mel Brooks, History of the World Part 1. A lot of these are cutouts. It's one of those things that's cool about soundtracks. Like, most of these, I think damn near everyone here is a cutout because they always produce soundtrack albums and nobody bought them. I'm like the only person in the world that wants this fucking record. Um, it's a goofy record. It's apparent. Oh, actually, I just haven't bought it. Did not realize you could also apparently get a History of the World Part 1 poster or T-shirt. I wonder how much the T-shirt. T-shirt for adult sizes was $8. Yeah, it's livable. Um, how cool would you be if you had a T-shirt with the history of the world? Um, this is a weird album. I mainly, I paid like a couple of bucks for it. Honestly, most of the appeal of this album, other than just like a kind of a fun comedy album, it does have the Inquisition song, which I think is quite fun. I mean, for a song about the Spanish Inquisition, at least. Last couple here. So you know what? This one's going to be last, because this is going to be the showstopper. I promise you. But damn close to the showstopper. It arrived today. I am so happy. It is the Canadian pressing of Roger Waters' Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. I had this album as a kid on vinyl as well. It had the censorous bar across this young woman's bottom, as most American pressings would, because God forbid, there's an ass on that album, and Tipper Gore and fucking 80s. But I got this album. I think I got this. Pretty sure I got this Christmas of 1984. I like this. To me, this is we're doing a list of like the 5 best solo albums by Pink Floyd members. Um, Definitely the solo Barrett albums dominate the top part. But this might actually inch out Roger Waters' The Body for me, um, coming in at a cool third. According to legend, when the Pink Floyd gang were sitting around looking for the album to follow up, the Animals album with Roger Waters brought them 2 ideas, one of which was this, the other of which was The Wall. Um, Subsequent accounts, they thought the ideas of The Wall were a little more ambitious, but even Dave Gilmour's noted for saying that he thought musically this was much better developed than The Wall. Um, there's an alternate universe. If there's an infinite number of universes where each choice has an opposite, there is a universe somewhere where there is a Pink Floyd's Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. Should I ever be able to traverse the multiverse, I will definitely be looking for a copy of that. Not that there's bad, musicians on here. Uh, the lead guitar, it's because he plays it with a full band. It's a solo album, but he doesn't use just session musicians per track. So it is the Eric Clapton, the slow hand, the Cat who is in the Yardbirds and Cream and said some racist shit, but isn't a bad guitarist certainly. Um, Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, ass version, touching her ass. I don't really have much of an ass anyway. It's always been, the irony of it. So, last album. First, I'm just going to hold it up. This is, by the way, not a film soundtrack. It's a original Broadway production. Cast album. Let My People Come. Smells like old. There's a smell that some old records have. Thankfully, not the smell of cum. This was, man, oh man, I've been reading up on this fucker. This was again, a stage production. Uh, this was not the first and not the only such production. There is a one called O Calcutta from a few years before that I've actually seen the filmed version of, which is just atrocious. It's so fucking bad. And this is pretty fucking atrocious too, but in a fascinating train wreck kind of way. Um, uh, it was born on January 8th, 1973, of Capricorn birthright. When an album identifies its own birth sign, you are in for some fucking 70s goodness. I'm just gonna read some of the titles. It's gonna get worse and worse, I promise. Opening number, Give It to Me. I'm Gay. Come in My Mouth. These are two separate songs. It's not I'm Gay, Come in My Mouth. It's I'm Gay. Next track, Come in My Mouth. Dirty Words. A couple of ones that aren't, the songs are dirty, but the titles aren't. The Cunnilingus Champion of Company C, which is a take on the Bugle Boy of Company C. And apparently lawyers were involved in that, according to the read. The interesting thing here about this nude musical about sexing people, this album won the 1975 Grammy for Best Cast Album. 1975 was a weird enough year. Somebody stood in a cocktail dress and the winner for best at the Grammys, and it's all ruffled tuxedos and Sinatra and Dean, whoever's big in the mid '70s. That's they're not really that. They're either has-beens, or they're kind of wussy music. So they're all the Carpenters are there, and Captain and Tennille and Seals and Croft, and Linda Ronstadt goes up in her dress, and the Grammy for Best Cast Album goes to Let My People Come. And they come up, and we couldn't have done this without you, and without a bunch of shameless fucking hippies who are willing to sing and dance naked on stage. This is an album, this exists, this is in my collection. Not only if you come over and request that I play it, will I play it, but the truth is, I probably will play it when you come over against your will. This is now on my short list of albums to torture house guests with. I have about 5 albums of such unlistenable pain to them that I save them for when people come over and they either really dig them or they, sort of claw at their ears to make themselves deaf so they don't have to hear it anymore. That is my record roundup. Again, soundtrack to Phantom of the Paradise is in the mail, as is the debut album of The Flying Lizards, which I'm very, very excited about. Post-punk band, The Flying Lizards, 1979. Love that fucking album. But in terms of soundtrack, I am short of Phantom of the Paradise. That's not included in this. Thank you. Feel free to leave comments. That's all I got. Reading some books. I'll probably post about that soon. But until then, ciao, babies.